really, really excited to have this event and to have ILCA presenting for ESP World UA. I've been with ILCA in many roles. I've done the program, I've completed the field program, and I got the language coaching and language and communication coaching certification from ILCA. Now I'm serving on the board of directors, and I keep promoting ILCA and language coaching because this is something that is a must now. And it's not only for ESP, for business English, but for anyone who works with grown-up learners, who works with professionals, who use English as a tool, a communication tool. Frankly, I cannot imagine my life, my professional life, without coaching now. And I don't really remember what it was like before. I started learning about coaching, which was in 2020. So 5 years with coaching, and more than half of that time with ILCA, which is fantastic. And today we have Gabriella and Carrie McKinnon, who are the co-founders of ILCA and who are the trainers on the field program, and who also run lots of interesting things and events for teachers, including the conference, the annual language coaching conference. So I don't even know how to introduce you. You are the magicians of this world, of this coaching world. And what you do is amazing. Because, for example, Gabriella has written a book, and I have it over here on my shelf, a comprehensive language coaching handbook. ILCA have also developed lots of very short, practical textbooks. They have the language coaching cards. So it's not only about courses, but it's about little things that help teachers to transition from pure methodological teaching to coaching, or to incorporate a little bit of coaching here and there. Because what I love about your approach, Carrie and Gabriella, is that you always stress that coaching supplements, enhances, improves, etc., the teaching that we do. So these are not two things that are opposed. They need to be connected. There has to be this tango. I know you have to choose the right tools. You have the language coaching toolbox and you have the teaching toolbox. And by using the tools from both of them, by choosing the right ones for the context for your learner, you can achieve great results. So thank you so much for coming and for agreeing to share your knowledge, your experience, and your ideas on coaching models and how they can help teachers who work in business English and ESP context. Thank you.
I will do a bit of housekeeping here. So generally, when you're all joining, you see that your microphones are muted and your videos are disabled, but please enable the video if you can, because it's easier for us to understand how we feel about the presentation. If you have some questions popping up during the session, please use the chat, the Zoom chat actually, to write your question, and we are going to, Natalie and I are going to be monitoring that, and we will be, at the end of the session, we will ask ladies to answer the questions. So Q&A will be at the end. The video is recorded, so feel free to rewatch it if you need afterwards. If you have some technical issues, you can text me, and we will try to understand what is happening and help you. And speaking about language coaching, generally the phrase which we often hear is like, you teach your students, not you plan. It's like easier said than done. Usually there is the whole science behind it, what we have to do and what works for your students best and what doesn't work at all. So thank you for joining. It's a pleasure and honor. And for example, I haven't done any formal training in language coaching, but I'm considering it. So this session will be definitely beneficial for me and for such teachers as I am, who have done like profound training, education in general communicative approach, but who need more, because we understand that teaching language is not only about language. Students should be also present there. So thank you. Off to you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to resume my screen share. Is that good?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that lovely, warm introduction. Gabriella, is there anything you'd like to say in response before we get started?
No, I feel very, very much invited and very honored to be here with so many of you. So looking forward to sharing what we have with Carrie and what responses you have. We'll try to make it a bit interactive here and there. So yeah, fine.
Absolutely. I echo the same thing. Thank you so much for having us here. We can't imagine ILCA without Natalia and without the Ukrainian community, which have been a really wonderful and significant part of the work that we've done over these past few years. So thank you for having us. A little bit about ILCA. Natalia gave us a great introduction, but I do just want to mention a couple of things. We were founded in 2019 by myself and Gabriella. We came together to really develop a landing place for language teachers that are identifying as coaches, maybe without any formal coach training, or seeking knowledge and have interest in this emerging field of language coaching. So we do offer language coach training. We have our field program. We're happy to talk more about it at the end, but it is a program that has live training as well as a self-led training. It's an entire process. It takes around 4 months to complete. In total, there's practice coaching in it. You work with me, you work with Gabriella, you work with a cohort. It includes a very international, very mixed online community called our members only zone. And we have that available to anyone. Maybe if you're not quite ready to join our language coach training program, we still do have a community. And as Natalia mentioned, we have our annual conference, which as a global organization, this is something that we really felt to be very necessary to get together once a year. It's normally in Europe. This year it's going to be in June, and we're not quite ready to release the location yet, but that'll be coming soon. And please, it's an opportunity. Our goal with our annual conference is to create a space for language coaches, people out there in the field that are language coaching, that are researching it, that are practicing it, that are interested in it, to come and not only learn from one another, but to have a platform to talk about the impactful work that they are doing with language coaching and how it maps onto their local situation. Okay. Last thing I'll say, we do have local hubs as well. So we have kind of smaller groups there available in many different regions that people can hook into. So yeah, I think that covers it on the about ILCA. And again, at the end, we can talk about anything else that you guys would like to talk about with that, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. This picture that you're looking at is us from this past June in Malaga. And I know that at least at least 2 of the people on this call that I saw are in this picture as well. So I'm sure
yes.
you're recognizing, well, besides me and Gabriella, 2 more. And I'm sure more than that. So yes, this is what we're going to run through today a little bit. We're going to talk about the context and learning environments that are pushing forward language coaching. We are going to explain the basic terminology and the basics of language coaching. Our goal is to give you guys some takeaways of coaching models, frameworks, questioning techniques, these kind of things. And then at the very end, get into both teacher well-being and learner well-being and how language coaching supports it, and open up the floor for a Q&A session. Okay, Gabriella?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so what I tried to capture here in this quadrant, and I know it's a deep dive, but I think it's very fundamental, very important to understand what we are talking about and what has, as Carrie mentioned, driven us to start dealing with language coaching not only as a buzzword but as a discipline, and which has its own, its own rights to exist and to develop and to grow over the years, is that there are a number of experiences, a number of shifts that are taking place at a number of different, I wouldn't say geographical locations, but, in our minds, the way that we feel about what we are doing in the work that we do. So it's very much rooted in the teaching experiences that we have as experts, and also the experiences that our learners themselves have and have had in the past. So what we're looking at, first of all, I'd start with the top right and then moving around. So the global contextual changes that are taking place. I'll focus primarily on what we're seeing with adult learners, okay? So I'm not going into the secondary, primary school experiences, because that's a completely different thing, and I don't want to, mix things up here. So the first thing is we're looking at working very much with teams or individuals who are working in a global environment themselves. They're no longer merely only working locally, so that in itself is going to be helping us to understand their need for using English or any other language that they need to reach out to their teammates, to their colleagues, to their clients, suppliers, whoever. Okay. It's also important to look at language through the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion in all its richness. Okay, so that's very important to be keeping in mind, and that can mean cultural diversity and a number of other things. Okay, English teaching, the approach to English itself has evolved over the past 2-3 decades. So again, there's a lot more richness here. We're looking at ELF, ESP, global Englishes, international Englishes. So there are a number of labels that we need to be able to handle with proficiency and understand what our stance is, how we want to be looking at that. And of course, the company perspective, which is they're more and more focusing on, okay, what's the return, right? So what is going to be worth their money, their time, their effort to partner with you as a service provider. We're looking at the educational professional shifts also. Over the last 15-20 years, teachers have become more and more aware of the widening of the scope of what it means to be a teacher. It can mean that you're turning into an edupreneur. It might mean that you're taking on a mentoring role. You feel that you're more of a coach now, but you're not quite sure what that actually means. And that's where ILCA comes into the space, right? So we're here to help define and help you to understand that. Identity, who are you in your role? What kind of values do you represent? What are you passing on to your learners? And of course, this all evolves, and what has become a very strong voice in language education is teacher well-being. And a particular approach is that it's not only your individual responsibility to look after yourself, it's also a system level expectation from teachers. So there should be schools, organizations should be approaching teacher well-being from the perspective of what they can do. Learner-centric psychological shifts are also very important. I'm not going to go into detail. Everyone can see them, but I think what is very important is that we're looking not only as what I can teach you, but how are you learning? How can I help your learning? Okay, so that's the big shift that is taking place in language education in general. So this kind of shift of teacher-centric, even if it's communicative and whatever other label we put on it, it is teacher-centric. And we're moving much more into the environment, the context of the learner, and we're trying to pull them out from being, a completely separate identity and trying to work together with them in partnership. And finally, the methodology is following with that, and of course the technology is changing a lot. And we've got gamification, artificial intelligence. So we know all that, but I'm just putting it out there. And of course, psychology in its different forms is also brought into the game now, and it's leading to very personalized learning paths, learning journeys. That's kind of the jargon that we're using lately. And these are all leading to very exciting things. But one thing which is in common for all of them, language coaching is supportive of all of these and is present in all of these. Okay, I'm done. You're mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. One of the first things that we did when we came together as a team, Gabriella and I, we realized that there was a need to define language coaching. This is something that I am asked still to this day. I'd say this is like the number one question when you begin talking to people, when I began talking to people about what I do. Sometimes even, language educators, not sometimes, often I would say. I teach in higher education environments with people that are doing professional development, and still they have a need to ask, well, what is language coaching again, right? And that's because this is an emerging field. So what we did was pull together a panel of international coaches and language educators, people that had written books about it, people that were prominent voices in the field, like I said, of both coaching and education. And we really, really, I would say, labored over every single word that you see on here. And this is a definition that we came up with, right? And we always say it's a definition, it's not the definition. We hope that there are many more definitions that we will and would align with as well. If you ever look up the definition of coaching, you can probably find over 100, right? And so that's why we don't claim to have the only definition of language coaching, but this is our definition of language coaching. And I'm going to read it out to you. Language coaching is a learner-led process aimed at creating optimal target language acquisition while working towards effective international communication skills in order to reach future-related goals. That's the first part of it. The second part of it, I hope you've had time to read that. I don't really like just reading out what's on slides, but it's here. This is on our website, and I feel that this is always a great place to start when we really get into what language coaching is and when we're introducing it as a concept. Okay, moving forward on here. It's also helpful to compare the differences. And as Natalia mentioned in the very beginning, we do not believe that coaching needs to replace teaching. We do not believe it's better than teaching. We believe that it can complement teaching and that it can make your teaching better. It is, however, helpful to understand that these are two completely separate activities, right? They are different things. You're doing something different when you're coaching than when you're teaching. And so it's good to understand the differences. And these are the differences that we've really, boiled down over the years in our experience. So teaching is a directive activity. Even when you're doing it communicatively, there's reasons why it's directive. Sometimes that's institutional stakeholders that make it directive, where it absolutely must be directive in terms of assessment, in terms of what's, learning goals and objectives. So it is directed, whereas coaching is non-directive. Right? So there's no institutional stakeholder there that's telling you this is what needs to come out in your coaching sessions. These are the objectives for the sessions that you're having with this client, right? And so if that in pure coaching, if that is happening, that's what we would even consider unethical for that type of thing to be going on. So teaching directive, coaching non-directive. Again, teaching instructor-led. I know that this is something that is developing. I know that many amazing teachers do not see their classrooms only as a place that is instructor-led. But again, if you are teaching inside of an institution, or even if you are, an entrepreneur and people are coming to pay you, you are still in this position of leadership. Coaching does not mean that you're not in a position of leadership in terms of how you run your own business, of how you show up. You're in charge of yourself, definitely. But in terms of the actual quality of what's happening inside of the sessions, the aim of coaching is to be learner-led, all right, or coachee-led, if you will. Again, moving on to aims. With teaching, the best way to describe this information, knowledge, practice, right? So we always say that when you are teaching, you are describing and explaining the language, that there's an element to that. And when you are coaching, in pure language coaching, you are not describing and explaining the language. You are focusing on the learner's own self-discovery, their self-awareness of how they're using the language, and the ways in which they have to grow. Okay, so that's the real aim and focus of coaching. And then in terms of the orientation and what goes on as well, overall, again, teaching has that structure built in. There's usually a teaching framework that's being followed. There is content and there are assessments. I think we can pretty much all agree that that's what's happening in teaching. In coaching, you're looking and you're working with the coachee on their goals. You're helping them define what it is that they see for their future. You're helping them figure out which strategies, which learning strategies are going to work best for them, and helping them, instead of assessments, we go into awareness here. So this awareness is different than the one on the aims. And what it means is that, we're not going in and testing people based on what they've been coached on when it comes to language coaching. What we're doing is we're celebrating communication instances. We're celebrating wins. We're growing their awareness around how they're using the language and what's happening when they are using it. This is a teacher to coach spectrum. So while we might start out with instructing our students, I would say when we're moving that one first step up, we begin to challenge not only the students per se and asking them to dig deeper, but we begin challenging ourselves, right? Of like, how could I do this differently? How could I share even more of this learning responsibility with the learners in this situation, right? So we move from instructing to challenging in that way. Usually receiving then is a great word for that next step, that what happens there on the spectrum as you journey into really mastering coaching, or at least feeling comfortable to do it. You're able to receive that leadership from and the guidance from the learners that you're working with. Okay, that one is huge. And then finally, empowering. It's a super empowering experience to be able to show up as a coach. It's empowering for both the coach, again, and the coachee, right? So the process itself then becomes all about empowerment. All right, invisible challenges. Gabriella, I believe this is your slide. We've got a moment for you guys to give some of your own input as well.
So what we try to visualize here is that we always talk as challenges as if it's like a block of things or a box and it's got lots of challenges in there. But the truth is that it's also very important for us and our learners too, to be able to identify what are the challenges that are visible, that are very, very apparent, very clearly there in the classroom or there in the language learning or the teaching or coaching journey that you're on, depending on your perspective. And because there are visible challenges, there are also, of course, invisible challenges. So there are challenges there which we don't necessarily notice or can name or can identify immediately, but that sort of emerge over time. And if we are lucky, we can address them and we can work with them with our learners. And if we don't have that kind of awareness in our teaching practice, in our educator's role, then it's going to remain invisible, and it's going to remain invisible for the learner too, because we're not helping them to become aware of something. And it could be something in our teaching practice, it could be something in the learner's own, route, the way that they're moving forward, and it can get them stuck. it can be something like we're working with them. It seems like they're making progress, but they're not actually developing. And then there's going to be that dissonance of like, I'm going through the units, we're learning new words, but I'm just still not confident enough, etc. Okay. And then there's going to be something invisible below the surface for the learner, which a coach will start addressing and start working with to help them move forward so that they don't reach a plateau or they lose their motivation, etc. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that I'm looking at here. And I'd like to invite you now to throw into the chat box any visible, and please label that, any visible or invisible challenges that you have noticed in the past, either for yourself or for your learners. Okay, so just briefly in a couple of words, if there's anything that you can share. And Natalia, Alla, if you can kind of check these or see whether anything is coming in for us here.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so
I'm going to put my ideas there as well.
Okay, I can see one. So fear to speak. Obviously for the learner, fear of mistakes. Okay, fear of failure. Okay, and so interesting. The first few are fears and lack of something, anxiety. Not being good enough. Fear of making the wrong impression. Lack of clarity of goals. Very good. Pronunciation, not used to coaching, very good. So they might not feel comfortable, the learner or the coach, with the coaching. Listening, fear of not being able to understand people. Okay, thank you. So there's a lot of, if I may say, to generalize this, there's a lot of negative challenges here, but there could be positive challenges there too. Any positive challenges that you've noticed? We're flipping the coin here and we're looking at positive challenges either for your learners or for yourselves. That's more difficult, isn't it?
It is.
To pass an interview. Okay, so it's an event that you're looking forward to. How to move forward in the most efficient way. Okay, landing a job. Yeah, so the positive ones are going to be much more specific. The negative ones are kind of more general and skill-based. Okay, being able to explain a situation. Okay, so these are going to be more specific. Negotiating effectively. So these are much more work-related, and they're going to be specifically to certain situations. That's an interesting observation to see, and it's definitely worthwhile going through this iceberg with your learners and seeing how you can then move forward with these. So it's an interesting activity, and for you also to create a bit more awareness. Okay. Yeah, I think we're good here. Can we move on?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go here.
Okay. So a bit of a deep dive again here. I guess I'm getting these. So what is it we mentioned in the description to this event? So we'll be talking about models, tools, approaches, whatever, just to identify what the differences are between these, because if you haven't been trained as a coach, you're not going to be aware of what these actually mean. So yeah, I don't like reading them out either, but I'm going to go through it here. Okay, so a coaching model is a structured sequence of steps. It's like an activity, but it's not an activity. So it's structured steps to help guide the conversation, the coaching conversation, or it can support a series of sessions toward a specific outcome. Okay. It's not focusing on the language, but on awareness about the learning, about the situation, perhaps about goals that you have. And we're going to share a coaching model later on, okay, so that you see what that means. So it's a structured set of steps. Let's just say that. And we should never mix it up with, oh, it's kind of like a language activity. No, because that focuses on a particular grammar, pronunciation, whatever aspect of the language. This is not focused on that. Okay. Now, what is a language coaching tool? It's an individual technique or a short activity that the coach would use for a specific purpose to create a bit of awareness and clarifying a goal. Okay, so the model is a larger, the tool is a smaller one, And then moving on to the coaching approach, that's going to be the whole sort of mindset, the principles, the beliefs, where we're looking at the learner's awareness, their autonomy, their intrinsic motivation. So not to pass an exam, but I want to learn the language because this and this and this, so why it's important for me. And looking at the learners as the drivers of sustainable growth, okay? So this is the mindset that is leading a coach to do what they do in the work that they do. Okay, moving on, let's have a look at the next one. And so here's a model.
Sorry, just 1 second. So we're going to move in now to the part that this was kind of an introduction to what we're moving into, some takeaways for all of you. Okay, so we're going to now show you models, tools, and what that language coaching approach. One thing I wanted to say about the language coaching approach, that terminology is something that we are still very much defining at ILCA. We don't actually have our official agreed upon definition for it yet. This is a great one that's on the screen now, and it's constantly evolving. And that's because we're seeing such an influx of the coaching techniques or a coaching approach go into education as an overall trend. So
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Ready, Gabriella? You're doing this next one. You can.
Yeah. And just adding, and as we move on to this, that a lot of this is already apparent in language education simply because of the context, the quadrant that I started with. What we're looking at here is a model that we can be using with our clients, and it's called the beacon model because of, you know, the first letters, right? B, explore, address, clarify, outline, navigate. So those are the 6 steps that you can follow when you're working with your clients. A model, to work with a model like this with your client, it might happen in 45 minutes, 60 minutes, but it might take a couple of sessions to work through each of these. And I'm going to be honest, it does take coaching expertise to be able to open these up. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to be present and I'll just, you know, listen to the learner. That's not coaching, okay? That's not being present in itself. It can be a part of it, but there are very complex coaching competencies that you need to sort of practice, learn about. You do peer coaching, for example, in our field program, and there's lots and lots of opportunity to practice these, because really it's not just about, okay, I'm going to try and just listen to the learner. Listen to what? So there has to be some sort of direction. That's the title of our talk, right? So there has to be depth and direction in everything that you do in coaching. So you want to be present in a mindful way, yes, but also being fully aware as a coach in your role of what is going on for the learner in the there and then in the coaching session. And something that Carrie mentioned earlier in the coach-teacher spectrum, that you accept everything, you receive everything. And it sounds a little bit like, I don't know, I'm going to sit down cross-legged and I'm just going to like be very mindful with the learner. But again, that's not the point of it. Moving on, we look at the background of their learning journey, but not to analyze it or to tell them what they should have done or ask them why they didn't do certain things in the past, but again, to receive that information and help them understand how they came to the point where they are now. And our focus as a coach is going to be using that as a springboard and help them to move forward. Okay, so we're not going to be ruminating in the past, because that's therapy. In some cases, it really can be therapy. And this, again, is connected to the role of the coach. The coach never uses psychotherapy or any other sort of therapy or, you know, psychological interventions in that sense. Okay, so we may listen to and hear certain elements of their learning journey to help them understand how they have arrived to the present. Okay, we'll be addressing what is going on now for them. Okay, helping them very often to see what exactly is going on for them. So imagine, and I'm sure it's happened a lot for you in the past, that you have a learner and they say, well, I have to use English at work. Great, wonderful, congratulations. How do you respond to that? How do you open that up and create a personalized kind of plan for them? So this is what we're going to be working on. There's a lot of work in between there, right? You're going to be asking a lot of questions. You're going to be looking at how they feel about their achievements, their challenges, what their difficulties are, and what their definition of success would be, right? And that's also something that we look at and we open up with the learner. And because of that, it's going to be very clear. We'll be able to clarify what exactly they need to be working on, okay? So we're going to identify certain learning milestones, which they can then put together, and it's going to be a very visible way, just like you've got the beacon, right? And it's going to shine that light, okay? And it's going to be very clear where you're heading and how you're going, and you're going to be able to avoid the rocks, okay? And that way you outline the path, and you also not only, oh, wonderful, so I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. But that in itself, again, is not necessarily the depth that we need. What we also need is you want to understand, for the sake of our learners, okay, how are you going to achieve that? And that's also a very, very rich conversation for the learners. In coaching, we call them clients. So for the clients, it's going to be a very, in my experience, it's a very rewarding process for them to understand, okay, so it's not enough for me to know what I need to do. I also have to kind of figure out for myself how I'm going to achieve that. And there again, there's going to be lots and lots of coaching support. And through this process, we're basically helping them navigate. And as they move forward on this journey, on this path, it's also, because it's a very flexible sort of process, you can adjust things. You can say, okay, after 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, okay, so how's this working for you? Do we have to do anything? Do we need to change things? What is going on for you now? How is it different compared to when we started working? And something that we very often, I wouldn't say necessarily forget, but we tend to sort of leave off is the celebration. Wow, you've come so far. Please appreciate your effort, everything that you have done to be where you are, because you've already put a lot of energy and time into it, probably money too. So to move on, we have to see what we can take from those successes to increase the chance of future successes. So just in a nutshell, that's what the beacon model is about. Okay. Yeah, let's move on.
All righty. Thank you for that. Next up, we're going to look at a coaching tool. Okay, so this coaching tool is the SWOT. I don't know if anyone knows this tool already from possibly doing business environments. If you ever worked in a corporation or maybe deep in your business English, you've run into to this. I'm seeing something coming in the chat. Yep, 100%. Yes. Okay, great. Yes, old but gold. I love it. It is old but gold. Yes, and there are updated versions of what a SWOT was designed to do in a corporate context, which is really to examine how to move forward, what are some of the blocks going to be, what is internal to the organization and what is external. And so with language coaching, because it maps so well into a business environment, the SWOT is a tool that, even though it's a bit older and there are newer tools like this that consultants will bring in and their employee development days might have them going through, even though they usually love it. And by they, I mean coaches and learners. When you say, okay, well, let's do a SWOT on your language learning, right? And so or maybe a SWOT with your relationship to your language. Let's just do a SWOT for you in English, right? In terms of what you're trying to accomplish. It's a great way for them to go in and take real stock in a way that they know how, a way that seems like getting down to business to them, right? And so I invite you all to do this, to do the SWOT. It goes through strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And you'll see those arrows kind of moving back. I call this a moving SWOT. This is something that I started doing with my students early in the 2010s, if you will, 15, 14, like that. And having them, instead of leaving, right? Because if you go through your traditional SWOT, you talk about your strengths, then you move on to your weaknesses, then your opportunities, then your threats. I hate ending on threats, right? And I hate going from strengths now, oh, let's do the downer of the weaknesses. So I normally try to flip it, okay? Or go through, okay, we can identify some of the strengths internal to you in terms of your relationship or your usage in this language. We can identify some of these weaknesses. Now, how are we going to turn these weaknesses into strengths? And the same thing, let's identify some of the opportunities that might come from your betterment in the language, or some of the opportunities to make the language better, whatever that is, but external factors. And then some of the threats to that journey, right? And then how also the threats, how are we going to turn those threats into opportunities? So this is what I call a moving SWOT. And yeah, we invite you all to use this with your learners. It's a great activity. I'm seeing in the chat, I also don't like the term threats. Yeah, so you've been doing SOAR. Okay, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've always thought it's kind of like not great to end, not great positive psychology to just drop them off in the threats water, right? So I always try to flip it around for them. But yes, this can take up an entire session. I oftentimes, if I get into a SWOT, it will take up an entire session with a learner, usually not more than one session, but and I find that it's something that can be applied at any time in your journey with them. It can be in the beginning when you're beginning to work with someone as they're, in a coaching capacity. But it could also be like at a specific maybe event that they are planning for. Maybe they got a big public speaking event or a presentation or a meeting or something like that. So let's do a SWOT on your usage of the target language during that event. So that's that. Our next coaching tool is coaching questions. And, we had to choose what to share with you guys in this because there are a lot of coaching tools, right? There's like, we consider active listening as a coaching tool as well, but coaching questions are something that are super important for coaches, right? These are the tools in our toolkit, and coaching questions, I would say, take up a lot of space inside of the toolkit. What I always tell people, we would never, and you should not expect for yourself to memorize every single coaching question that exists. That's insanity. That's not going to happen because there are a lot of coaching questions out there. However, once you are language coaching and once you really find your niche in it and your way that you really do thrive when you're working with learners, you will absolutely remember the questions that resonate most deeply with yourself and your own approach to coaching. And that's a very important part of the magic of coaching, right? And those questions that you use will absolutely resonate with the learners that are therefore drawn to you and have contracted with you and that you're doing this work with. Now, all of that being said, coaching questions accomplish different things. Okay, so we've got 3 categories here. We just tried to give you guys a lot of questions for you to have on the screen. If you want to screenshot it, take a look at it, whatever that is, right? So the first category we've got up there is the looking ahead. And then we've got all these in here, and you see that we did try to specify and contextualize these coaching questions for a language learning environment. That's something that's important, because if you go and you just look up, okay, coaching questions, and absolutely do it, look at them, they're great. but a lot of them are not going to be specifically contextualized for you as a coach, right? It might feel, if you're just asking a general coaching question and not contextualizing it in the language learning journey, it might feel a bit like life coaching, and that's not what we're there to do, right? So some of these questions we have already really specified for this. So what does your dream come true with your English, for example, or with your whatever, with your target language, right? So that's in the looking ahead category. We've also got different perspectives, right? I would go further. What might be blocking you from speaking, right? If they're struggling with speaking, for example, and again, it's that contextualized. It's not, we're not asking them in general what's blocking them in their lives, which would be much more like life coaching there. So yeah, different perspectives category right there. And then the focus on you, right? Focusing in on them and the personal responsibility that they can take in this, the options that they have available to them, the resources and the supports they have available, and what they can actually do. And again, that's on that empowerment thing as well. All right, so those are our coaching tools, which are questions. One thing I will also say, so I'm going to go back to the beacon model. Each step of every coaching model like this has questions, right? So if we look here, let's see, you guys can maybe help out. And I know we've got to flip back and forth, right? But we've got be present, explore the background. Okay, let's see. Exploring a background. Do we find any questions on here that are applicable to that particular step? And I intentionally made this a little bit more challenging because these are all kind of forward looking. Let's see if anything's coming in the chat. If you see something you think that would be applicable there, feel free to drop it in. Okay, I got something. Yeah, how would you compare yourself 5 years ago with today? Absolutely, because that's about the past experience. Thank you, Anna. So yes, moving back again, that question you could use right here. Okay. And that's kind of why a model is a much more involved thing to really master and be able to use than a tool like SWOT, right? SWOT, you've got to remember strength, weakness, opportunity, threats, whatever. It's like a one session thing. Models could be a session, they can take a lot longer. And each step of it is going to involve a strategic question for you. Okay, so while coaching tools are questions are a coaching tool on their own, and you can pull one out at any time, I believe, in any situation, you can pull out a coaching tool. When you are working with a coaching model, you absolutely do need to apply some of these coaching questions to the various steps of the model. All right, good. Moving forward, Gabriella, is this one yours?
Yep. These are mine now, the next few. Yep.
All right.
So just we don't have to go back, but just relating to questions, don't imagine these questions like there's a book of coaching questions. There are, but that's not the point. The point is you can invent questions. These just, helpful guidelines for it. So just to clarify any kind of, oh, I need all the questions, there's no such thing. Okay. To kind of understand a bit of the mindset, so the approach that we can bring into our own lessons. I've brought 3 very typical learner approaches that I think everyone has taught or tried to teach at some point, right? So we've got the learner who doesn't really know what to do and how to learn. So they're kind of like, I know what I need to do. Like I've got a sort of very vague goal. I need to pass a B2, or I have to give a presentation in 3 months. So that sort of thing. And that's it, finito. Okay, that's the end of the story for them. Over to you, you're the teacher, teach me. That's clearly not going to work, whether we like it or not, okay? So with this kind of learner, a teacher would approach this completely differently, would bring in lots of input and start, pushing towards that presentation. And then that's where you're going to get that bottom half of the iceberg, right? That's where you're going to see something's not working. It's not really, they're not really making progress. A coaching approach would be, we want to understand how they have succeeded in the past. Break it down into very specific, very small, easily doable first steps so that they can identify with it. And then start building a strategy that they can be involved in their own learning journey, so that all the responsibility is not on me. I mean, that's such a heavy kind of, a burden for the teacher. And that's, it's your highway to burnout. That's just the fast route to burnout. Like, I'll do everything and you don't have to do anything. Dear learner, you just pay and everything will be fine. Clearly not. So this can be a very good way of approaching this sort of student or learner. The other type, I mean, there are a lot of sort of types of learners, but I just chose these three. The second one is I have a goal, but I've got lots of excuses why I can't reach that goal. So what we look at here is what sort of priorities they have, their values, okay? What's going on for them? So we focus a lot on their intrinsic motivation. And we also help them to feel stronger by working on them identifying what their strengths are. In learning, maybe a little bit in general, so what they can apply from their workplace, for example. How are they present as professionals? And then bring that into the picture. And then focusing on what resources they have that they can start moving forward with. And then that kind of, it's like you've got a fire and you just extinguish it. Like, it's not going to work because you've got, look, this is what's important for you. This is how strong you are. And you've got all these resources. And then when the learner comes with, no, look at this list. Okay, so you're just kind of pushing them aside. And sooner or later, it's going to click for them that, yes, I can do this. Okay. And the third one is the type, I call this perhaps the artistic type or the creative type. So they've got goals, they've got plans, they've got dreams, but they just can't really figure out a clear way, right? So they always come, oh, I saw this TED talk, let's do the TED talk. Or I've got somebody recommended this great business book. I think we should do that. And then 2 weeks later, actually, that's not what I need. I don't know, I'm just not. And it's not excuses. It's the fact that they haven't cleared everything, right? So here we declutter. We say, okay, what's going on? We have to be very, very present with this type of learner. And we clarify and we prioritize. So here the beacon is very good. Also in the second one, I have one goal, the SWOT. And in the first one, the learning history, that's just very much about creating some kind of action plan or strategy. Okay, so this is how coaching would approach these in a different way. Okay, can we move on?
Yes, and I also want to check in about time.
Right. Okay.
Natalia,
okay.
how long do we have left?
Okay, we have about 10 minutes left, but
All right.
we can stay a tiny bit longer if you have the time, so you cover everything.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, I'll be very quick here. Okay, so the top tips, I think they speak for themselves. But what we have to be very careful of as teachers, we love to give advice. We love to say, oh, I know what you need. And the coach steps back and say, well, what do you need? So we just flip. Anytime we want to give advice, we say, I know what you need. You need me to ask you a good question. Okay, so that's kind of the way that we should be looking at it. We don't give suggestions. Okay, and they don't need any more analysis or criticism. They get a lot of that in the the learning education system, right? So everyone is kind of put into that situation where they're, oh, I won't say it because it's not perfect, right? That's the result of all the advice, the analysis, etc. Okay, so we try to stay positive. We have a future focus. We're not going back always into the past. We use open-ended questions, which means who, what, where, how, when sort of questions, and not why questions. And we practice active listening. Okay, so that's a very strong competence. Okay, Carrie, I'm moving. Okay. Then we've got how all this affects educator well-being. This is mine, right? And then the next one is yours. So I want everyone to understand that this affects how we see ourselves, how we work, how much energy we put into it. Because work for an educator is very complex. It's a dynamic state. There's a lot going on mentally, physically. It is growth oriented, obviously. We have very focused awareness when we are teaching, and also obviously when we're coaching. We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't find joy in it. For a lot of teachers, it's about, you know, enjoying what we do. For some of us, it's not about the money, should be about the money. That's a different conversation. And of course, there has to be a very effective, a very strong kind of scaffolding environment for us. And by working with coaching, we're able to address everything that's in our lives and bring that experience and help our learners identify what they can bring from their life into the focus of their language learning journey. And that creates well-being, because there's going to be a very high priority for them to want to do things, and they're going to feel much more at ease with everything. And you too, the burden is going to be less, and the responsibilities are going to be more leveled out. Moving on. Yes, your turn.
Okay. Yes, and this is just important. I want to reiterate that, you know, language coaching as a profession is something that supports your well-being, right? And these are some of the ways that it definitely supports your well-being. I love, you know, that you mentioned here joy in work, Gabriella, because I think that's a huge piece of it. There are ways also that language coaching, that approach helps achieve well-being for learners as well. And these are those main areas. I'll run through them quickly. You know, for self-awareness, language coaching helps our learners notice their own strengths, grow awareness around their limits, possible patterns, also reflection, right? So it connects their progress with their personal growth. And that's a very rewarding thing that's reinforcing their well-being. There's tons of positive emotions in language coaching. They're building confidence, they're unlocking their motivation. So all of that is helping their well-being. Also relationships. So it can help to strengthen their relationships. It can help strengthen the relationship between coach and coachee. It is a space that can create trust and support as well. And then language coaching absolutely is helping our learners and ourselves, I would say, to adopt a growth mindset by exploring strategies that boost our learning. Okay, so these are some of the ways that language coaching is beneficial for the well-being of the learners that we're working with. All righty, I believe that's pretty much it. We invite you to drop in your takeaways from this in the chat. Anybody that wants to go in there. I don't know, Natalia, if you wanted to do a Q&A formally, or if, yeah, how you want to run this part of it.
We have a couple of questions that people left during registration. So we can either answer them right now, or you can give your answers later and we'll share them in chat that we have. So up to you.
I don't mind answering now. Could I just mention what's on this slide first, and then we'll move into that part? And I'll just do this really quickly. I just want to say we do have a Feel program cohort that is starting on October 8th. For anyone in the Ukrainian community, Ukrainian educators, be it in Ukraine or living abroad, we have a specific Ukrainian coach space within ILCA where you can kind of interact in your own language and with your colleagues, and tailored to your specific context, which we know is very specific and very high stress. So we invite you to take a look at that. We've put up a QR code here. You can also find you can find links to everything on ilcaglobal.com. But that's starting on October 8th. There's a significant discount for Ukrainians. This is one of the ways that we try to support the community. On September 27th, we actually had so many people interested in the in-person conference this year that we have decided to run it online. So that means that a lot of the presenters, almost all of the presenters that were there, have agreed to give us online versions of their talks, and to actually, show up. And please do. It's September 27th. It's not too late for that. I think that this is going to be something that we have to do moving forward as well. So we invite you to join us for that. And then there's some other links on there. Obviously, we've got a YouTube channel. We've got tons of ways to interact with us totally for free and at various different price points along the way. So
Do
that's
join.
all I have to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say that do join if you want to transition to language coaching and learn more about language coaching, and not just for business and ESP context, but also for any context where you have grown-up learners, any context really, be it general English, exam preparation, even academic context.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yes,
Absolutely.
it's a great program. True. Tested, tried and tested, and using the knowledge that I gained there every single day of my professional life, really. Now, questions. We have a question from Emily Joseph. How can independent English coaches integrate coaching models to differentiate themselves on the market?
Okay. Shall I?
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
Carrie?
No, go ahead.
I think what it gives you is a clarity of the service that you're going to be providing. So you're going to be able to be more specific regarding the outcomes of what you're working with. And you're going to be able to find a niche, I think, in a better way, because you're just more clear on what you're offering. Like if you have certain coaching models that you apply, then they're going to be geared towards a certain kind of outcome. Like the SWOT focuses on strengthening the client. So if that's something that you want to be working with, then okay, that's a coaching tool. Okay, but you get what I mean. The beacon is going to be present. There are a number of other coaching, there are many coaching models out there. This is specifically something that ILCA has created, and we work with it. We help you to use it in your own work. But there are many others which ICF and a number of other organizations will be, will have tried and tested and researched and used it a lot. So there are some coaching models which you can very, very bravely sort of like use. And they're all there to make it easier for you. So the time that you're not spending creating lesson plans, you're spending on your marketing, on growing your business, on, selling what you're doing. It's just going to be, I'd say it's a game changer, because it reduces a lot of the stress of the work that you have. Like, I've got a client in half an hour. What do I do? And whatever. And we've got AI, we've got lots of things that can help us. But in reality, we just have to be very present with our learners. And the coaching models, coaching tools are going to give you a very clear indication of how you can settle with the client and how you can help them shine in a way. And they're going to feel so much better, and they're going to pay more.
Yeah, this is such a good answer, Gabriella. And now when I think about AI and all the applications available out there, the most important difference between those and a human teacher is the presence. I mean, no application can provide this presence, can create the space where you have this co-regulation that kicks in with the mirror neurons. And the value of coaching, it's just growing now. The more AI tools we have, the more teaching or learning a language goes digital, the more coaching becomes important. So
Yeah.
presence is the key. Yes.
I love that you mentioned the co-regulation. And I think part of that also, I think it's important to mention, and this is why it is important to, if you are feeling called to work with coaching models and to integrate them with the clients that you work with, to get some coach training, because there's a little bit more that goes into it in terms of consent as well. Right. And so when you're applying a coaching model with someone, you're going to be asking them coaching questions. Those coaching questions can be probing at times. And we need to make sure that the coachees that we're working with have agreed to show up in that space with us. So I would say also, please, like, remember that there's a what I call a learner buy-in. I think I'm saying that right. My Southern US accent, sometimes people make fun of that, but buy-in, right? Meaning consent. We need our learners to say, yes, it's fine to ask me those questions. Yes, I agree. Fine. I'll tell you if it's too much, right? That type of thing. So that's maybe a little bit more on the function side of how to integrate this coaching model into your teaching, but consent's an important part of it. And that's just like one thing I'm mentioning. There's many, many more steps in there. And I think that's why it is important to increase your own toolkit and your own understanding of what coaching is and what it means to blend it into your teaching approach.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
regarding consent, that's something that we focus on a lot in the beginning of the field program. We help you to integrate it, to use it in your sessions, because I had one or two, when I was teacher training, and they said, oh, I tried to coach today my client, and they were annoyed and they didn't want to answer the questions. That's not how it works. Like, okay, tell me about whatever, and I'd like you to focus on this, and we're going to raise awareness about, whatever your strengths. And they're going to look at you like, huh? What are you talking? You've never done that. It's going to make them feel weird.
Yeah.
And learners don't like weird. And it's about trust. So you learn how to contract. That's the terminology that we use in coaching. And that's something that it's not like, okay, now I'm going to coach you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So please don't do that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. One more question is about motivation. From Tatiana Zhovnir. Where is the fine line between motivating students and being a mom? Do teachers really have to motivate all the time, or is it more of an adult responsibility of the person to do their best? That's a good question.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, that one is very clear to me, actually. From a coaching perspective, I never feel like someone's mom when I'm coaching them. I feel like a mom to my kids when I'm momming them and when I am trying to give them messaging, right? But coaching is not about that. Coaching is about unlocking being present with the learner to help them identify and unlock their motivation, right? So your role in a session like that with a learner and with a coachee is not to be feeding them you can do it, I believe in you, like, you got this. Like, I have to do that with my teens all the time. Like, you're amazing, right? Like, boosting them up and gassing them up. I think that's called, right? We're not doing that in sessions, really. I mean, there might be a tiny bit of that at times, a compliment that goes out, but not really, not overly. And even that's controversial, being like too positive in response to what they're saying, right? So our role as coaches is not to mom anyone. And I would go further to say, on a larger level, it is to motivate, but it's not a directional motivation, as in I'm motivating you. It's like, no, you are unlocking your motivation. You are identifying what motivates you, because I don't know that. Only you know that. Only the coachees know what truly motivates them and what's going to work for them. And our role is to create a safe environment and a safe space for them to explore that.
Yeah. And I think unlocking is the key word there. And the ICF says you unlock potential. And I think that's very, very strongly connected to believing in the client. And that goes back to trust. So if you've got a very strong level of trust with your learners, with your clients, then you believe that they can achieve what they have as goals. And that's the very basis of coaching. Very often I hear teachers speaking about their learners, not you, obviously, but I have heard that they're hopeless. They're never going to, you know, pass that exam. Then what are we talking? How should a learner be motivated when the person who is working with them towards their goal doesn't believe in them? So it's all about belief and unlocking that belief in them. And it's not cheerleading. So that's absolutely true, Carrie, that we don't like, I know you can do it. That in itself, I don't necessarily believe in. That's not my role as a coach. But what I can do, it's a bit like, I'm here and I'm going to help you move up there. Okay. My hands are open. I'm here. But if you're not willing to come here, I can't elevate you, right? I can't move you along your journey. So that has to take place. But it also means that I need to have that strength to be standing here. Okay.
All right.
And one more, it's a set of questions, but I'll try to put them in one. And I think, Carrie, it's going to be for you because it's about the university context, the academic context from Maria Kutsela. And the most important question here, I think, is how can coaching complement academic language instruction at a university? How do you integrate coaching tools when you work at the university with large groups of students?
Okay.
Oh, thank you for asking me that. As our university semester kicks off this week, this is something that I am deeply, deeply reflecting on. And this does really come into, for me, this area where we talk about a language coaching approach, right? So universities, in my world and in my experience, university I work for, the stakeholder, which would be institutional expectations, are like level 100. And I think a lot of universities are like that, right? We're not just showing up and free to do whatever it is that we're doing. However, I'm a big believer that in any moment, even in the most structured moments, there is always a possibility to push forward learner self-awareness and to share more of the learner responsibility with the learners. So this is how I approach it in a university context. Sometimes that looks like asking the class for consent to ask them a question about how they feel about the particular thing that we're working on, and then putting like a scale on the board and asking them that question. Okay, so that's just like a very like nuts and bolts how you would do it, if you will. But sometimes it's just one coaching question in an entire hour and a half lecture, if you will, class-based experience. And lecture is not even the right word because I don't even teach like that, right? I'm not like a lecture teacher, I'm a language teacher. So it is all, you know, activities and communication and that type of thing that's happening. But even with that type of thing, it's a very different experience than coaching, right? And so the other thing I could share with you guys is that I think about a lot is like that, how to coach a group as well, right? And that's very different than that space that's created with a one-to-one. However, creating a safe and trustful environment with the class is always a top priority for me. And again, with group coaching, one of the things that I'm a big believer in with my language learners in my university classes is asking them to go within and not necessarily to have to then share out, but to put it in a journal. So I've even at times gone to, like, we have these places here in the US called dollar stores where you can buy like $1 little notebook that says blah, blah, blah on it. And I give it out to them. And I'm like, this is going to be your journal that you're going to do in class. And no one, I never have to read it. I just need to see you kind of writing in it when I ask you some things. So it looks like that. It's a dance. And it's a negotiation. And I will say, however, language coaching for me, because I'm now a language coach and I'm trained, I can't unsee it in the teaching. And it's always present for me. And it informs everything I do on a meta awareness level, right? Like a meta, I'm always very aware of whether or not I am coaching. And that's why you always hear me saying, like, nope, coaching and teaching are different activities. Even super communicative teaching is a very different activity than coaching, but there is a place for it in university classes. I do believe that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's it with the questions. We have one more question in chat about the structure of the course, but I'll just drop a link so people can read about it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yes, that's it, right, Ella?
Last thing, yes. Another.
Yes.
Education, yes.
This is not, that's it, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning.
Yeah, so in less than a month, we are also hosting and inviting you to join our webinar on coaching, which is called Power Up Your ESP Coaching Tools That Really Work. You will see Gabriella as well, and 2 Ukrainian trainers, teachers who have done coaching courses, yeah, from different, Natalie, I guess, yeah, Oля has done it with another.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we will showcase basically different approaches, which anyway are all about coaching. So we'll have, and they are all practitioners. So this is not going to be theory. This is going to be based on practice, drawing on the insights from years and years of practice in business and ESP environment.
It's going to be three lectures for 1 hour each, with Q&A, of course, at the end, from Ukrainian and international speakers. And actually, we're going to be having it on international level as well. So you're welcome to join us. We will be posting all the details in our chats and on LinkedIn and Instagram and in our chats.
And something that I can share here is that I'm going to be drawing on my my work with multinational global organizations, where I'm bringing coaching at a number of levels. So I'll be bringing in case studies and examples so that there's lots of takeaways there. And yeah, looking forward to that.
Any questions?
We're getting thanks.
Thank you
you
so
notes
much,
in chat.
everyone.
Yes.
Well, just while other people are logging off, whoever asked that question about the format of the field program and if it's pre-recorded videos, as Natalia said, it's yeah, there are pre-recorded videos, but they're more like bite-sized. There's a lot. We have an actual, like, it's an LMS, right? So it's a study engine, if you will. So you go in, there's various modules, there's so much content. You read through it, you watch videos, there's additional links in there, and then we meet together for the first 4 sessions are 1 hour. After that, it ticks up to 1.5 hours for the rest of the time. So we meet weekly, and in that weekly time, what we do is we discuss what was in the self-study modules, and we practice coaching as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of practice, I can tell you that.
So you're coaching each other, yes? Something like that.
Coaching each other, demo coaching, practice coaching, and just, you know, again, I always, in my sessions, I really try to model what it's like to do group coaching as well, and empower everyone in the cohort to feel that they are also a part of leading what happens inside of our cohorts as well. So it's a highly interactive experience.
Very interactive, very deep, and I'd say it's quite unique on the market, simply because it goes so very, very deep into the nitty-gritty, all the details of coaching. So you take away a lot of practical stuff, a lot of theory.
Yeah.
So it's all research-based. It's not just, okay, Carrie and me kind of thought up things, but there's a lot of background there. And it's very, on the one hand, intensive, but on the other hand, it's, it's bite-sized, it's doable. I mean, Natalia, and I can see a lot of field graduates here in the audience, so it is doable. They come out alive, so so it's something that you can do. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you all in it.
We'll share the link to the course again in chat, so people can check it. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. here to the participants for staying with us, although we've run over a little bit, but thank you. And I hope you found it useful and practical. Maybe there's something that you are ready to try today or tomorrow straight away.